Every year, millions of pounds are stolen from unsuspecting victims under the guise of love.
The type of crime we're investigating is a confidence trick.
Call it what you will, romance scam, blackmail, gold digger, whatever the name, it doesn't begin to describe the horrific impact these crimes can have on the people who have been targeted.
As well as being life-changing, these crimes are very much on the rise, with victims losing an average of more than £11,000.
Well, we are here to stop the scammers in their tracks, and as we get to the bottom of how they were able to pull off some of the most audacious cons,
we'll have everything you need to know to make sure you and your money stay safe.
Coming up, this businesswoman confronts the man who conned her out of £60,000.
You stole my entire life savings, and you're still saying right now, no, I didn't, no, I didn't. You're just a liar, and I don't know how you live with yourself.
where is Pat's money? How this model caught out the man who'd stolen his photos so he could pretend to be him and scam innocent victims.
I said, don't lie to me, mate. You've been caught red-handed now. You could have cost this girl life.
And a sophisticated romance con that played out like a real-life spy story, complete with dramatic finale.
I don't even think there's words to express how I was feeling. I just wanted it over with.
We've been contacted by a lady called Pat. Now, she thinks she's been scammed by a man called Morgan Giovanni. Let's take a look.
I had tried online dating in the past, and so I was sort of used to it. I just wanted companionship. I really liked his picture. What connected me to him was how different he was. You know, I have lots of money and we can go off, and I was saying, great, I can quit my job. The problem for me is that the scam started really quickly, and I just fell for it.
Well, we're determined to uncover the truth behind this scam, so I'm setting off on the trail of Morgan Giovanni, using all the evidence that Pat has gathered to start me off.
And I'm on my way to see Pat. Romance scammers stole a total of £50 million from their victims in 2018. So I want to know exactly how she ended up being taken in.
Hello, hi Pat, how are you?
I'd been made redundant from a job that I really liked. My youngest daughter had gone off to university, and I had this feeling that finally I could maybe form a new relationship, because I'd been a single parent for 17 years.
Pat signed up to an over-50s dating site, and it wasn't long before Morgan Giovanni got in touch.
From his photograph, was he your type in the beginning? Did you
I
think
thought he was really
attractive?
attractive. And he started being very nice.
Morgan told her he was an Italian-American boxing promoter based in Oregon. He was divorced and had a daughter who, like Pat's, had just gone off to university. He quickly asked Pat to carry on their chats on the phone messaging service WhatsApp, and as things progressed, he asked for her home address.
He said, I just want to send you flowers. And so I suppose when you've been a single parent for 17 years, it's really nice to get flowers.
Yes, of
And
course.
when you've just been made redundant from your job.
Of course, right, yeah. So that in itself, to me, you know, if somebody says, you know, I want to send you flowers, and do send you flowers, you think this is a person that's genuinely interested in me and is, you know, and is keen to kind of forge a relationship.
But the messages Morgan sent soon moved from romance to finance.
He asked me to send him £6,000.
Why did he say he needed the money? Why could he not pay for it himself?
All of this is, I need this money because I'm bidding for this tournament, and they've frozen my account and my colleague's account, because we have to have £100,000 in our account in order to do this pitching. I was suspicious, and I said, oh, you're just trying to get money out of me, and, you know, you're a crook and all of this stuff. And then he sent me, through WhatsApp, his passport, his daughter's ID from University of Portland in the States. He sent me pictures of his daughter's credit cards to prove that he was a genuine person, that he was genuinely who he said he was, and all of that. So I sent him the $6,000.
Given the situation with his bank, Morgan asked for the money to be paid into his daughter Tonya's account. But while Pat was convinced by the documents Morgan had sent her, when her kids found out what had happened, they saw things very differently.
What did they say when you'd said, oh, I've sent this guy that I've been speaking to for 2 weeks, $6,000?
They said it's a scam.
They said to you then?
Yeah. I just ignored them because I wanted it to be true, that's why.
Of course, Pat only parted with the money on the promise she'd get it all back when the two finally met up. But having made plans for Morgan to come to London, he cancelled at the last minute, telling Pat he had to go to Amsterdam on business.
He said, I'm going to go to Holland because I'm pitching to promote a boxing tournament. And he sent me through his plane ticket with his name and all of this. So he's always sending me backing up, you know, documentation.
Evidence, yeah.
And I'm just very gullible, I suppose, and naive.
But, you know, like you say, if he's being charming and, you know, seems to be the real deal.
Yeah.
At every turn, Morgan was sending Pat documents that made him appear legitimate. So I want to know if they're quite as genuine as they seem.
Darian.
Hi, good to meet you.
Yeah, Ashley, nice to meet you, mate.
Yeah, you too. Sit down.
IT expert and journalist Darian Graham-Smith has agreed to cast his eye over the documents Morgan sent, starting off with his passport.
So this is Morgan Giovanni's passport.
Well, there's a couple of rather suspicious things about it. The first one that really leaps out at me is the quality of the text. You can see United States of America here and all these little words like nationality, date of birth. Those are all a little bit blurry, a little bit soft. The words Giovanni and Morgan, absolutely as sharp as you like.
Yeah.
That's been added afterwards, no doubt about it. And if you have a look at this passport photo here as well, I'm not quite certain, but it looks like someone's cut out the existing picture, the real picture of whoever's passport this was, and just pasted their own face on top.
It's crazy. The thing is, if you've, you know, spent months building a relationship with someone online, they send you this, you're not necessarily going to notice that, are you?
No, absolutely. If you already feel that you know somebody and you're building up a degree of trust, you're not going to be looking for these kind of things. And honestly, I guess you're not going to want to find them.
And once you know what you're looking for, there are similar clues with the student ID.
If you look along the top, it says student identification. It's a little bit blurry. It looks like it's been scanned in. It certainly doesn't look like it's been professionally printed. Whereas the text below it, absolutely pin sharp. It says Portland University and all of this. This looks like it's clearly been digitally layered on afterwards. And also, if you look very closely, you'll spot these are actually different typefaces as well. It doesn't look consistent.
Do you mean different fonts?
That's right, yes. Also, down the bottom, if you look at this signature here that says T. Woods, you'll see those two letter O's are absolutely identical.
Oh my God, I would never notice that, but it's true.
This looks like it's clearly been digitally layered on afterwards. Yeah, I don't think there's many people whose handwriting is that perfectly consistent. So that, again, is very much a red flag.
I would not spot the points that you've just raised. I could be convinced that that is someone's legit student ID.
No, absolutely.
While Ashley gets closer to the truth about boxing promoter Morgan Giovanni, Pat's telling me that shortly after she'd lent him $6,000, he came up with reasons why he needed more. But the only way she could help was by raiding her redundancy.
He started asking me for money for his taxes. I don't know, you know, and I just wanted to believe him. At any other time, I would not have had this money. I just wouldn't have had the money.
Yeah.
So anyway, I did send him, it turns out it was about £52,000.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah, I'll never have that money again. And still then, I believed him.
Having pocketed the £52,000, Morgan Giovanni didn't stop there. 6 weeks later, he told Pat he needed to borrow even more. He'd won big money betting on a boxing tournament, but with his bank account still frozen, he asked Pat if he could transfer the winnings to her instead. The only catch was she'd need to pay money up front first to get the cash released.
He asked me for another $38,000. He'd said he'd won a bet. He gave me the login to his bank account. And there's a big picture of him, and there's about £2.5 million in the bank.
As far as Pat was concerned, this was proof that Morgan already had plenty of money in the bank, but getting the £38,000 needed to release his winnings wouldn't be easy.
Then I started to try and borrow it, and I decided I'm going into my bank to ask for a loan.
So you then went into the bank and they said to you...
She said to me, you know, you'll owe us £40,000 if I give this to you. It's a scam. Well, that's when I gave up. That's how I'd say it. I gave up. You know, gave up the dream.
Yeah.
And admitted, oh dear.
So you,
oh dear, what have I done?
Yeah. But up until that point, you hadn't wanted to admit it. But
No.
kind of had.
Well, I always had doubts.
Okay.
But,
Yeah.
you know, I was
But there could have been
willing
some
to
doubt.
be persuaded.
Yeah.
I was willing to be persuaded.
Despite being conned out of £60,000, Pat still hasn't broken off all communication with Morgan.
And the reason I've been in contact with him is to, well, I want to find him,
Yes.
you know.
Well, maybe we could try and help you find out some information that might end this nightmare for you.
That would be great.
Well, that was a story. The thing about Pat is that she is not the kind of person that would really be taken in by this kind of thing. She seems super intelligent and switched on. But I think what happened in this case was the guy was so convincing, sending flowers and really kind of making it seem like he wanted to have a relationship with her prior to asking her for money. And then all the documentation that he had to back up his stories, the passports, the flight tickets, the ID, it's actually really scary.
While Ash and I look into who Morgan really is, all of this raises the question of how you can tell if someone online is who they say they are. Scammers trawl the internet every day looking for profiles they can steal to win over their unsuspecting victims. Now, having your identity stolen and used in this way can really take its toll. And when model Matt Peacock found out this had happened to him, he decided to take action. Matt Peacock is a successful model with over 25,000 followers on Instagram.
I've been doing it for about 17 years now. I've worked for people like Range Rover, Bentley, Purdy, Adidas.
Matt uses Instagram to promote his work and keeps his settings open so anyone who wants to can follow him at the click of a button. A fair share of whom are women.
Almost you've kind of got to look accessible because people kind of want to kind of buy into your lifestyle a bit. Certain brands will book you because they like that I'm a family man, or certain brands will book me because they see that I'm good with my dog, and so you kind of got to be open.
But Matt's openness on social media provided a gateway to scammers to misuse his image. He found out that scores of men had helped themselves to his pictures so they could pose as him on dating websites to entice women, a practice known as catfishing.
I was getting messages off girls saying, oh, why are you talking to me under a different name? And I was like, oh, hang on. And that was kind of my first kind of baptism of fire into the whole world of catfishing. It was weird, really, because I'd never come across anything like that before. Someone was pretending to be me.
At first, Matt didn't see any reason to be unduly worried about the misuse of his Instagram photos.
They'd never usually call themselves completely Matt Peacock because obviously I have those social media handles. There was one guy called Matt Peak and he obviously put a lot of thought into that. But I mean, at first I just kind of laughed it off.
But a worrying pattern soon emerged as a growing number of distraught women started contacting Matt and his partner.
It got to the point where it was happening every single week. I was getting lots of messages off girls upset, some not believing for 1 minute that it wasn't me. Some people messaged Rachel and said, your boyfriend's talking to me online, pretending to be somebody else.
Matt discovered over 60 fake profiles using his photograph, but it was when a young mum called Kirsty contacted him that he decided he needed to take action.
A young girl messaged me and said, I've been talking to this guy for 6 months. I thought it was you. He's talked me into sending nude pictures of myself, nude videos, and it's got to the point where I'm going to take my own life. She was quite a vulnerable person, and I thought, right, I'm not going to stand for that. I've got to do something about it. I can't have that on my conscience.
Matt hired a private detective who quickly tracked down the man who had duped Kirsty.
The detective advised Kirsty, you need to speak to him and say, I've found out that you're not Matt Peacock, but we've got a connection. I don't care what you look like, I'm not like that. Please, can we meet up?
The scammer took the bait and arranged to meet Kirsty at a hotel car park. But what he didn't know was that she would be nowhere to be seen. Matt and the private detective would confront him instead.
He pulled into the car park. I went and knocked on his window. I said, I suggest you get out, you know exactly who I am. So anyway, he got out, he's crying, shaking and everything. And I was like, what are you doing? And he was like, I'm not doing it, if it's not me, it's not me. I said, don't lie to me, mate. You've been caught red-handed now. You could have cost this girl life.
Next, Matt read a statement from Kirsty to the scammer, telling him the full impact of his lies.
She said, you've broken me as a person, you've destroyed any kind of confidence I had. And it was heartbreaking, absolutely heartbreaking. So anyway, I made him listen to me when I read it to him.
The scammer told Matt he'd never meant to cause any harm and blamed his behaviour on the fact he got bullied at school and never had any success meeting women.
I shook his hand, I said, swear to me as a man, I said, it's time to be a man now, do not do this again.
But he soon did. There were 20 other women on the scammer's phone that he'd catfished using Matt's photographs. The private detective contacted all of them, saying that the man responsible had been caught and he wouldn't be doing it again. Unfortunately, he already had.
One of the girls said, well, I spoke to him last night and he sent me this picture, and it was a picture of me and my dog Barney that he'd renamed, and I'd taken it the night before, so I was like, that's it, I'm going to the police.
But Matt was left stunned when the police told him that because the scammer hadn't done anything illegal, they were unable to take any action.
There's lives at risk and it needs addressing. And we said, right, do you know what, we're going to try and change the law.
Matt contacted his local MP, Anne Coffey, who agreed that the law needs to be changed to make catfishing illegal.
The Digital Charter and the Green Paper offer an opportunity for a real partnership between legislators and technology to be developed to protect users from aggressive and harmful predators.
And while it is already against the law to pretend to be someone else for financial gain, no such law protects victims when it comes to matters of the heart, something that Anne and Matt are campaigning to change.
If you go. You should only be able to have an online social media profile, an online dating profile, if you can prove who you are. Simple as that.
We've been looking into the case of Pat, who was sweet-talked into handing over £60,000 to a man who wasn't who he claimed to be. We've already discovered that the documents he sent through as evidence he was real are actually fake.
I would say this is well within the reach of any scammer who's going to even bother making the effort.
So next, I want to know if it's even him in the pictures he was sending. And if not, where has he got them from?
Pat has given me photos, IDs, documents, all sorts from Morgan, so I'm going to check it out to see what I can find out.
I'm uploading one of the photos Pat sent me to an online search engine. This will scour the internet for anywhere the image may have appeared. It then reveals a number of identical or related images, which will give me a better idea of who the person is in the photo and hopefully lead me to a name.
I'm going to pull out some names from these links to see if I can find who this fella is. Attila. Right, so I'm going to Google that name now. Okay, he's on Facebook. The pictures that Morgan has been using are on this fella Attila's Facebook page.
With Attila's Facebook settings set to public, his photos are readily available to anyone who wants to see them or use them. We've got to the bottom of who Morgan's picture belongs to, but what about his daughter, Tonya?
She is all over dating sites. Oh my God. I mean, this image has been pimped. I want to find the real person. Where is she? Oh my days. I wasn't expecting that. Okay, so we have got a name for her. She appears to be an actress. I'm on her Twitter page. It's her verified Twitter account. Her pinned tweet says this: I don't have Facebook or any other social media account. If you've spoken to anyone that says they're me or using my photos, they are lying. Don't get catfished. So she's aware, of course, that her picture's being used many places. I'm so shocked by that.
It's clear that everything that Morgan told Pat is based on a lie, but the one thing we do know is real is his phone number. So with Pat's permission, it's time to give the scammer a dose of his own medicine.
I texted him a few minutes ago, and Morgan has been messaging back non-stop. He's manipulative, he is keeping me interested, he is saying that he wishes he could see me today. I mean, he is doing everything he can to keep Pat's interest. He's saying to Pat, I tried many times to call you, but your phone wasn't working. Are you working? Busy? So I'm going to reply. I'm going to say, yes, it's been a busy time, but I've been thinking about you. He's just texted back, super quick, saying, I've also been thinking of you since you left. He's just said there is so much we have to talk about. The dialogue is relentless, he's still typing. This could go on for a long time.
For Pat Scammer, stealing this innocent man's identity and forging documents wasn't enough. He also used manipulative language in his texts to get what he wanted. So I'm going to meet a forensic linguist who can tell me how a romance scammer would get an intelligent woman like Pat to develop such strong feelings for someone she's never met.
They start out talking and having kind of loving dialogue. How does it go from that to asking for money?
It's a grooming process where you start off in a normal relationship, you give information to the person, they give the information back, but then slowly, ever so slowly, the norm changes into a situation where you don't even recognise it anymore. And it's through that manipulation of language. And you end up in a situation where your normality is completely irregular.
Elizabeth has picked out some of the scammer's messages that showcase this technique.
So here is some interaction between Pat and Morgan. And you can see here that the scammer is trying to invoke this reciprocal trust. He's saying, I love you, why don't you love me the same way back? To try and almost shame her into doing what he wants her to do. So Pat goes, all right, I believe you, but I'm not giving you any money. She really puts her foot down here, but this is how he manages to manipulate Pat. He then says, you know, things went wrong. I'm not the type of man who likes asking help from women. So here he's really provoking this protective response. He's saying, you know, I'm putting myself out there. Now, this is a really important point. You're challenging them because you are feeling vulnerable and you need reassurance. The person on the other end of that, if they react in an angry way, either they're a scammer or they're not the type of person you want to be in a relationship with. This is typical of an abusive relationship, of coercive control. She's apologising for trying to protect herself. She's apologising for her vulnerability. Please give me another chance. Don't let me ruin this relationship. So he's switched the whole thing round.
You don't realise, you know, what goes into it and how much they're obviously manipulating the situation and how they are picking up from their constant conversation their little vulnerabilities.
Absolutely. Those are the exact kind of things that scammers will use against you.
Like so many others, Pat was duped in part by the language her scammer used when he emailed or texted her. But some of these frauds are so more elaborate, as this next case shows. At the heart of it is Lynn, who had no reason to doubt her new partner as they'd met in person several times. But the scam took her halfway across the world, crippled her financially, and ended up with her working with the police in an undercover sting. When John, an intelligence analyst from Liverpool, contacted Lynn on a dating website, they immediately clicked and quickly met in person at a plush local restaurant.
He took me for a meal, proper gents. I just thought, you know, this guy is a real nice guy, and I can't believe I've met someone that actually likes what I like, and, you know, we had a connection.
After several weeks of seeing each other, John told Lynn he'd been asked to work in Israel for the next 6 months. Despite the long distance, their relationship continued to blossom.
Messaging every night. We'd spend hours talking. Sometimes I'd have 2 or 3 hours sleep. I'd be that tired in the morning.
It was in one of these conversations that John broke the news to Lynn that his father, who lived in Dubai, had died, and he needed to go there to sort out his estate.
He said, would I like to come over? He'd pay for me to go over there, put me up in a hotel. I had about 3 days' notice. So I thought, yeah, why not? I just got on a plane and went.
But when Lynn arrived in Dubai, it wasn't John there to greet her. Instead, a man who said he was his cousin whisked her off to her hotel.
I did feel a bit, I don't know you, but he'd messaged me to say, I'm sorry, someone will be meeting you, this is what he looks like.
For the next 24 hours, the cousin drove Lynn around Dubai, showing her the sights. But then John sent news that because of his work situation, he wouldn't be able to leave Israel anytime soon. So he asked Lynn whether she would be able to help his cousin sort out his dad's will without him. And he told her the estate was worth a staggering £7 million.
When he told me the amount, I went, wow, that's a lot of money. But he wanted to bring money over to England, and I was like, can you do that?
John told her on the phone he wanted to use some of the money to buy a house for the pair of them. And he also said that he'd donate £500,000 to the local hospice where Lynn volunteers. So whilst in Tel Aviv, Lynn and the cousin went to see the solicitor who was executing the will and arrived to an eye-opening surprise.
There was like this big case. Opened it up and it was just full of money. Millions American dollars. Made me I felt a bit on edge actually to see that much money.
Lynn was given a special certificate that she was told to keep safe so that John could legally bring the money back to the UK without paying tax. Despite feeling uneasy, she agreed.
So I put it in my passport. We mustn't lose that, he said, because that's vital, otherwise these 4 days I've got here will be wasted. So don't worry, it's in my passport, it'll be looked after.
2 days later, John's cousin asked for the certificate back, but there was a problem.
It'd gone. So I was literally hunting everywhere. I thought, no, it's got to be there, put it there. Looked everywhere. I remember them saying to me, oh, that's not good. John's not going to be very happy. I was like, oh dear me. I said, is there anything I can do?
At this point, Lynn had no idea that the cousin had secretly taken the certificate. A replacement would cost £10,000, but John told her on the phone that he had to have one.
I went back to the guy and said, what about if I give you the money, and then you can get it sorted. As soon as you get your money back, give it me back. No, he said, no, we can't do that. So I said, no, please take the money.
John told Lynn he would pay her back with the inheritance.
I transferred the money over straight away. I said, it's all a bit bizarre, this. I said, but it's not every day you meet someone that, you know, has been left so much money in the will.
Lynn returned to the UK confident that her money had helped John release his inheritance. But there were more surprises to come. John asked her to meet a security consultant called Doug, who'd now be taking over the legal side of his dad's will. But at that meeting, the security van pulled up and 2 men carrying a suitcase joined them. When the suitcase was opened, it was stuffed with US dollars and Doug wasn't happy.
Why is this not done? This was meant to be changed into English money. Do you realise that now we can't do it? Blah, 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 blah. Quite a big argument, really. This is going to set things back. We need this now and all this. And I was like, oh, my goodness.
The two men left with the cash, but a visibly upset Doug told Lynn that he now feared for his job. He said he'd now need to pay £500 a week for however long it took him to get the money converted into sterling, cash that Lynn felt compelled to help contribute.
I think because I'd put so much money into it, I felt I need to get this money back, so I've got to give money to get money back, you know? I don't like seeing Doug upset. We sort of got this far. I get £500,000 for the hospice, and I'll get my money back, and everything will be hunky-dory.
By now, Lynn's son had found out about the elaborate fraud that she had been drawn into. He contacted Action Fraud, and then the police, who assigned Detective Kevin Green to the case.
At the time when we met Lynn, she was 18 months into this fraud. We had an awful lot of catching up to do in terms of a reactive investigation. Lynn was still very much immersed in that fraud, and actually this story read like a movie script. As I got to know Lynn a bit more, I realised Lynn ploughed her heart and soul into someone who she'd formed an emotional attachment with. She'd been manipulated in a very sophisticated manner.
But when the police told her that, Lynn couldn't accept that neither John nor Doug were who they said they were.
I said, well, that's not true, and that's not true. I've met them, I've had conversations, that's not true. I said, so no, I'm not getting scammed.
I think we've got to understand that Lynn was probably at a time in her life when she was open to manipulation, she was looking for a real emotional bond, and actually the people behind this scam really exploited that.
But the police's theory had sown the seeds of doubt, and when Lynn caught Doug out on where he was living, she realised she had been duped after all.
I felt humiliated, embarrassed, thought, do you know what, I've had enough. Forget the money, forget everything, that's how I felt.
But with Lynn still in contact with both con men, Kevin hatched a plan to catch them out. Lynn would arrange to meet them with the next payment they'd requested.
We knew that he was incentivised by money and the promise of more money, and he'd never failed to attend previously. Lynn would be present in the hotel. We fully anticipated that he would turn up, and basically the police operation was to ensure that we were there to arrest him when he did.
For Lynn, this meant potentially putting herself in harm's way if anything went wrong.
They'd already pre-booked a train for me. He said 5 or 6 police officers are going to be in the train, you're not going to know who they are. That's for my protection, obviously, in case I bumped into him or something. When you get to Euston, go into the toilet, and a lady will put a tracker in your bag.
An understandably nervous Lynn made her way into the hotel lobby.
One of the hardest things I've ever done. I don't even think there's words to express how I was feeling. I just wanted it over with.
As Doug made his way to greet Lynn, she gave the prearranged signal for the police to pounce.
It was something as simple as her putting a handbag on the table, at which point we were able to identify the correct person, and our officers were able to move in and effect an arrest. I think he'd probably been there so many occasions with Lynn, he was fairly complacent and just thought it was going to be another payday for him, and that was a real nice moment. It was just to watch that switch in power, that balance of power where they had been more than happy to exploit Lynn for 18, 20 months, and actually that was the moment where she was really integral into taking her life back.
Doug, real name Ajibola Dalu, was eventually convicted of fraud by false representation and sentenced to 3 years and 9 months.
I think Ajibola Dalu really misjudged Lynn. He thought she was vulnerable, but he didn't realise that she was incredibly courageous and not as weak as he actually thought.
Though police never caught John, the man who started it all, Lynn can now see how she became so drawn into the scammer's lies.
It's like your brain takes on a different dimension. And when you get out of that sort of reality you were in and you see that, a lot of things are so much clearer. I was definitely well and truly groomed for months.
I've been on the trail of the conman who duped Pat into parting with £60,000. And the evidence I've uncovered makes it clear exactly how he did it.
Wow. Okay.
Today, Kim and I are meeting Pat to reveal the truth behind Morgan Giovanni, to help her draw a line under the experience once and for all.
So we have been working hard, we've been investigating just what's been going on, and we've made some discoveries, and if it's okay, we'd like to share them with you.
Yeah, I'm really interested.
Cool.
First, we're showing her the details that make the passport he'd sent to her a fake.
If you look at how it's been cropped, if you look at the background,
Yeah,
that is not an official photograph that would be used for a passport.
right.
As well as that, if you look at his name,
Yeah,
you can see the font is sharper than this bit of text.
yes, it is.
That's a pretty good sign that this has been faked.
Did you spot any of that in the beginning, you know, when he first sent these documents?
No. And also, when it comes over WhatsApp, it's really small.
Yes, of
You know,
course.
it's really small. I think the point for me is it felt like because he was sending this stuff, he was legit. And actually, every bit of it was false, which...
Yeah.
You will recall this image that he sent you.
Yes.
We did another search on that,
Yeah.
and we found this image belongs to a man in Turkey called Attila.
Attila.
Now,
Wow.
So he's used his Facebook profile photo
Yeah.
as the passport photograph. But you can see here that he has actually, you can see
Yes,
he's got photos in a boxing ring. So not only has he taken his photos, he's also decided he's going to make himself be this boxing promoter because he can take his photographs and it can look
Yeah.
all very legit.
Next, we show Pat the evidence that Morgan's so-called daughter was bogus too.
do you remember that Morgan sent you this?
Yes.
University photo ID of his daughter. If you look at the O's, if you take a careful look, what can you spot?
Oh, they're identical.
Can you
Yes,
see
they
that?
are. They are, actually. Yeah, I see that.
That suggests that this isn't handwriting,
Ah,
but use of technology to manipulate the signature.
right.
But it's important to say that you absolutely did the right thing by asking for this form of ID. But clearly what's happened here is that he has used technology to try and pull the wool over your eyes.
And, as with Morgan's passport, the person behind the photograph wasn't called Tonya at all.
It is in fact a picture of an actress.
Really? An actress? Wow.
If you read her pinned tweet, it says, if you've spoken to anyone that says they're me or using my photos, they're lying. Don't get catfished.
Yeah. It's just disappointing. All of it is disappointing. But I'm glad to hear it. I'm glad to have it picked apart.
I've been texting Morgan, pretending to be Pat. We're going to give him a call, but what he doesn't know is that it won't be Pat he's talking to.
Hello?
Hello.
Morgan, is that you?
Yes, Empress.
How are you?
Empress, I'm fine. Pat, I really have no bad intention for you. I really have no bad plans to take money from you. All my plans, all my focus is I knew you are the person I love. So I keep telling you, just be patient. Don't listen to people. Because if you listen to people, it's going to affect your relationship. But then you never listen to me.
Well, you know, Morgan, I'm really sorry, but I'm not actually Pat, but Pat is a friend of mine. My name's Kim Marsh, and you're being recorded for a broadcast on the BBC. And we believe that Morgan Giovanni is a fake identity that you've created as part of a scam using photos that you've stolen from someone's Facebook account.
Who said that?
Morgan, we believe that you are a scammer and that you're only speaking to us now to try and get more money out of Pat. Isn't that right?
No.
No?
No. Can I talk to Pat?
You want to talk to Pat?
Yes.
Right, Morgan. You lie and lie and lie, and you stole my entire life savings. And you're still saying right now, no, I didn't, no, I didn't. You're just a liar, and I don't know how you live with yourself. You're just an evil, evil, evil man.
No, Pardo, you need to talk like that. It's not true.
Well, then, return my money immediately and stop your web of lies.
Pat, I'm not lying to you. Can I
Where
talk
is
to
Pat's
her?
money?
Can I talk to her?
The passport picture that
Can
you
I-
have...
Can I,
The passport that you
can I
sent...
speak to Pat?
We have shown Pat the evidence to prove that you have lied. We have shown Pat the real identity of the man that you are pretending to be. She knows, she's seen it all.
Pat?
What's your real name? Because your real name is not Morgan. So what is your real name? Hello?
He's just amazing, isn't it? I just find that shocking.
He is a professional at this, you can tell.
Yeah, yeah. He certainly seems to be.
Are you okay?
Yeah, yeah.
Really?
Well, I'm just shocked by the world, and I shouldn't be. I know I keep saying that, but I am.
Yeah.
Has this given you a sense of closure?
Well, it's definitely over, yeah, definitely. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Pat. Thank you. Thank you for telling your story, because it's really important.
It wasn't what Pat wanted to hear, but now she knows the details of how she was deceived. I'm hoping it will help her start to move on.
When you have it laid out in front of you, the level and the depth and the layers of, you know, how horrible people can be. He was no longer him. It was no longer Morgan Giovanni that I was talking to. I was talking to a scammer. You know, my mindset changed through that process, which is good.
If you think you've been scammed in a similar way or have been asked to send money to someone you're talking to online, then we'd like to hear from you. Email us at loveormoney@bbc.co.uk.
Well, that wasn't the last we heard from Morgan Giovanni. A couple of hours later, he sent me a message saying, well done, God bless, goodbye. I think he got the message.
Yeah, and Pat has definitely drawn a line under it all. She told us that she's finally deleted all of the scammer's photographs from her phone and is putting the whole thing behind her.
Now, everyone we've met knows it's unlikely they'll ever get their money back, but hopefully they and you now know how to spot the signs that things aren't always what they seem.
Because you just can't be sure who's in it for love
Or money.
Details of organisations offering information and support with fraud are available on the Action Line pages of the BBC website.